Hey everyone, today we're working on the diff skid install for the non-kdss 4Runner. So I'm going to show you guys what comes with the diff skid when you buy it. First of all, you've got the skid itself, of course. You're going to get some hardware with it. You'll get 3/8 by 1 1/4 carriage head bolts, 4 3/8 flange nuts, 4 3/8 flat washers, 2 regular 3/8 nuts, and 2 3/8 split lock washers with that as well. This piece here is the e-locker motor guard. That's an optional thing. You can choose to get that or not with the diff skid. This one, we went ahead and installed it first already. So this one is bolted on with the 2 3/8 by 1 carriage head bolts, flat washers, and flange nuts. Those will come with the e-locker motor guard if you order that with the diff skid. So the other parts that come with it are the 2 axle clamps, driver's side, passenger side, and then you've got the pinion clamp, goes over the top and onto these carriage head bolts here. So these 2 3/8 by 1 carriage head bolts, we already installed them from the bottom side here. We used some masking tape to hold them in place because that's going to make it a lot easier to keep those bolts in there when you go to install the diff skid on the rear axle. So I'm going to show you guys how we put it in position to get started. So we went ahead and loosened the sway bar bolts first, backed them out almost all the way just to give a little room between the axle and the sway bar. So we're going to tip the skid back a little bit, get it in between the sway bar and the axle housing, and then it'll just kind of hang by itself there. So I'm going to grab the clamps for the top next. So we're going to feed these through from the back side of the axle housing. You'll take the small end first underneath the brake line, feed it through, and then same thing on the driver's side, small end first under the brake line, and you can let it sit there for now. So now that we've got our axle clamps on the top in position, we're going to go ahead and put the hardware in. So all of these 3/8 by 1 1/4 carriage head bolts are going to go in from the bottom. So we're going to grab one of those, a washer and a nut to get started. So you want to just barely get that started. You're going to want to do all 4 of those and keep them loose for now. Okay, now that you've got your upper axle tube clamps put on, the next thing we're going to do is put the pinion clamp on. But first, before you put that on, it's possible that you may have to remove the original e-locker motor guard. Some of these we've had to take off and some we haven't. So this is the original guard that attaches to the e-locker up here. So you may have to remove that to get clearance to install this upper clamp right here. So in order to do that, you remove this bolt here, that nut, and this bolt. Take that guard off, and we leave this bolt out as well. So you can set those aside. Next thing you'll need is your upper pinion clamp, the 2 3/8 nuts with lock washers. So we're going to do this side first. Hang the clamp on, put the washer on, and then you're not going to want to thread that nut on very far. Just a couple threads, just to hold it for now. So now you're going to move over to the other side here, push the diff skid all the way up, put the upper clamp over the carriage bolt, and then put your lock washer and 3/8 nut in place. All right, so now that all of your hardware has been installed, it's all loosely in place, now we want to go around and tighten everything down. So what you're going to want to do is evenly tighten these carriage head bolts from front to back. So you want to start in the back, snug them up a little bit, and then go to the front side, tighten a little more, come back, and just go back and forth so you're not tightening one all the way and then the other side. So we're going to do the same thing on the pinion clamp as well. So when you're tightening down this one, you'll have to use the open end of the wrench because you can't fit a box end on there. You'll want to tighten this side a little bit and then come back over to this side and tighten them evenly as you come down until the bolts are all the way tight and the clamps are all the way together. So we've gone through and completely tightened all of the hardware for the diff skid. You can see that now the axle tube clamp is making full contact with the diff skid. And it's like that in the back and in the front all of those clamps are making full contact. That's how you'll want them to be, fully tightened down like that. And then over on the pinion clamp, these ones do not quite make full contact. We've got a little bit of space in between, about 1/4 inch or so between those clamps. The torque spec for these 3/8 bolts is 23 foot-pounds, so that's what we've tightened these to. And you can see that we're left with about a 1/4 to 3/8 inch gap between there. That's what you'll want those to look like once that upper pinion clamp is all tightened down. So once all that hardware is complete and tight, your rear diff skid install is finished.